All right, good afternoon, good noon, everyone. Welcome. Before we begin, I'd like to welcome this month's attendees from the Leadership Development Program. We are happy to have you. Please stand and introduce yourself and tell us how long you've been at KUB and where you work.
Hi, I'm Becky Ford. I'm in the Compensation and Benefits Department, and I've been with KUB for almost 8 years.
I'm Harris Bollinger. I work in our storerooms department, and I've been with KUB for almost 9 years.
Hello, I'm Michael Cherry. I work in the System Maintenance Department, and I've been here 10 years.
I'm Travis Franklin. I work in the Water Systems Engineering Group, and I've been here 19 years.
Kevin Walcott. I'm in our Safety and Technical Services Department. I've been here for almost 2 years.
Hi, Amanda Branch. I'm in accounting. I've been here 20 years.
I'm Jeremiah Ray. I've been here 3 years, and I work in our Fiber Network Operations Department.
Well, welcome to you all. Thank you for joining. Helping to build the future of KUB. We appreciate it, so thank you. All right, now I'd like to recognize Josh Ball, who's filling in for Bill Coley with Hodges, Dowdy, and Carson to call the meeting to order.
I'll call the roll. Commissioner Caballero. Present. Commissioner Feinbaum.
Here.
Chair Gibson.
Here.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Commissioner Nichols.
Here.
Commissioner Pearson.
Here.
Commissioner Pickett.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. The minutes from the January board meeting were sent to us for review. If there are no corrections, we need a motion and a second to approve.
Motion to approve? Second.
The minutes will be approved as mailed.
All right, thank you. There's no official action today, but we have several updates that Gabe and his staff will share with us. So I'll recognize Gabe for his president's report.
Thank you, Chair Gibson. Yes, we just passed the mid-year point of this fiscal year for KUB, so we want to give you an update of where we're at on some things and how we're making progress in a lot of areas. So I will cover that at the very beginning. Mark will give you an update on the financial part of the mid-year update, his favorite part of the year. And so he'll give you that at presentation, and then follow up with that with the bond sale we just recently had this last month. So he'll actually do two presentations back to back. So let's clicker to work here. All right, Cameron, you have to kick it off for me here, brother. There we go. There we go. All right, we've had an issue with the clicker today, so there it goes. Thank you, sir. He's behind the wall watching. He's Oz, all powerful. Anyway, as we covered this last year with you, this year's priorities, organizational priorities. You see there in three major buckets. Grow the fiber division. That'll probably be on there for the next 2 or 3 years until we get the entire system built out. I will discuss that in more detail in a minute. We also are talking about upgrading our CIS software and one of our enterprise systems. And then we had the third category is preparing for a fast-paced future. A lot of different things underneath that category that I'll talk about in detail here in just a second. But we are making a lot of progress in a lot of areas throughout this fiscal year. Next slide, Cameron. Still not clicking. There we go. I clicked too many times. Okay. Oh, I won't put it down now. As far as the fiber, as you see on the chart to the right, the green was the area we had already finished prior to this year. The yellow represents what has been finished in fiscal year 26, and the blue is what's coming up in the next few months. And as you can tell by that map, it's nearly full. We are in the final phase of our 3-phase of build out. Very excited about that. We're on schedule for construction. We have now passed an initial 27,000 customers. And our goal this year was to get over 10,500 customers, and through January, we've already added 7,300. So we're way ahead. We're doing really, really well. It's very strong. I do know that a lot of folks are still waiting, and I appreciate their patience. I've heard from those folks, and they're signed up, ready to go as soon as they're getting their area served. And so we are looking to extend that good run for a while. But people are really satisfied with the product, really want it. We've had a lot of success with that, and I'm glad we're in the business of serving those customers. The last bullet there talks about our Connect Ed program. That has really taken off this year. After a lot of groundwork over the last few years, we have now 660 kids across 400 plus households getting connected to the fiber, getting high-speed fiber for their schoolwork and their academic activities. So very exciting news on the fiber side, and continue to see great growth, and we're making a lot of progress. Next slide. Yeah. CIS, so it's a 25-year-old system. So it's served us very, very well, but is at the end of useful life. And so we are in the throes of trying to get that replaced. You heard from Jamie and others in the past about it, so I just want to give you an update of where we're at. We have now selected a vendor after a long, long process of 13 bids, a lot of demonstrations, a lot of conversations, very, very thorough, which we need to be because it does impact every customer's bill across all 5 utilities when this is all said and done. So over the next 2 to 3 years, this will be a major lift for us. A lot of key folks at KUB be working on this project so that we make sure it's perfectly right when it comes out to the production of our bills and our customer touch points. And so those negotiations are underway to get that contract signed. That'll take a little while because it's such a big deal. But our folks are working really hard in our IT, communications, procurement, all the departments involved to make sure we get this thing rolling. So we're very excited about getting to this point. A lot of work ahead to get this program up and running. So very, very, very big project for us, obviously. And then the fast-paced future, 4 small buckets underneath there. Energy and water system to continue Century 2. That's basically the theme to that. Make sure we advance our utilities, replace things as needed, use technology where we can, like the smart meters and smart switches, to further our system, make sure it's safe, reliable, and affordable for our customers. So continuing in that direction, a lot of big projects going on throughout KUB, as you'll hear next month in this April in our capital plans, continuing to keep that system going, all those systems strong. On the facility side, we're trying to make sure our campuses are good as far as we grow. We just moved into a new campus on Casey Drive. That's the picture in the bottom right. That'll house our fiber operations, our fiber construction, call center folks, all the folks that work in that fiber division as we continue to add folks. I toured it about 2-3 weeks ago. It's a nice facility. It's been there for a long time at the end of Casey Drive. And so it gives us room to expand more and offer more services to our customers. And so that's part of our facilities plan. There's other campuses we're looking at also. And so it's a comprehensive plan that Mark and his folks are working on throughout KUB's systems. Workforce, we've heard this, and everybody's dealing with this. Grow your future employees. We got a lot of ties with UT, Mississippi State, TCAT, and now with the 865 academies. Lots of touch points there. I personally sit on the CEO Champions of Knox County Schools 865 academies. It's awesome what they're teaching these kids nowadays. It's such a different way that we were taught when we were young, and getting hands-on experience, trades, college prep, whatever that student wants to look forward to doing, it's incredible. And so us getting involved in that's critical. We have a lot of partners across the KUB and across Knoxville period that are a big part of that. So, positions like accountants, engineers, plant operators, those tough to fill positions, this is the way to get it started early and reap the fruits later on. So continue to look at our workforce and our existing workforce. How do we make sure to maintain, retain, take care of our own employees? So part of that's in that workforce development also, hence the LDP. And financial flexibility, what that's about, and it reads kind of unusual there, but we had COVID, we had inflation, so now that's all in the last 5 years. If something like that happens again, how do we react? And so we worked on financial flexibility plans. If we had to pull levers or do things differently because of something else externally happening to us, what do we do in those situations? We want to stay on plan, don't want to raise rates any more than we have to at all. So if those things happen, what's our flexibility? And the folks have done a great job of saying, okay, these are things we would do in that situation, given the scenario. And so we are better prepared than ever, and always will be, of the next thing that may hit us that we don't know is coming. So appreciate the folks really looking at this from all aspects of the company, because we want to maintain the strong utilities we have, but also manage costs and unknowns in the world. So a lot of work there in that area, and be glad to answer any questions you may have about that. So this is my last slide before I turn it over to Mark. It's just a mid-year summary. A lot of good news here. I mentioned fiber a minute ago about its strong growth. We're seeing it in all 5 utilities. Water, gas, sewer, and electric are all growing faster than we thought. That's Knoxville as a whole. If you drive anywhere, any direction now, there's construction going on. And so we're seeing that across all 5 of our utilities. As we know, we've been working hard on smart switches, so our savings on minutes of interruption have greatly grown the last few years. We're at 37 million minutes over the last 5 years. 9 of that happened this year. 9 million of that happened this year. And we're only halfway built out through our system with smart switches. So I hope to have a lot more minutes to save and a lot more outages to eliminate over the next few years as we build out that system. We had a great response on emergency. We talked about the big emergency at MBW. Our folks, once again, responded tremendously, did a phenomenal job, and just shows the expertise we have here at KUB when something doesn't go right. I mentioned this last winter, we had a cold snap this last little bit. You all remember it well. We set a new electric peak. First time we've done that in a while, so it got really cold for a sustained amount of time, so electric peak. And then we had 8 consecutive days of 100,000 decatherms of gas. We'd never seen that before. So it just shows you how cold it was, and our systems responded really well, did a great job, And fortunately, you know, we didn't have a whole lot of weather besides just cold weather to have to deal with, but tough there. And then lastly, volunteer hours. You know, that's something we measure internally. That's our giving back to the community we serve. We encourage our folks to go out and serve a nonprofit, work for a nonprofit. And this year we set a new record of 5,300 hours given back to the community. You know, it's one of those things we don't force, we don't coerce. We just say, hey, it's there for you. Find something you like and do it. And our folks love it. I'm glad we started that about 10 years ago and continue to offer that to our employees. The charities that reach out to me just thank us tremendously for the efforts. They couldn't do without us because our folks like to work. And so keeping us busy is the challenge, which is good. And so I hope we continue to see that growth for the next few years and just make sure people are aware of that. So there's other things on that slide if you want to ask about, but a lot of good things up there through the first 6-7 months of the year, fiscal year, that I'm very excited about. And we're doing really well. And our folks are working really hard to get those things done. So I really appreciate the efforts our folks are giving us. Yes.
Feedback for me.
Yes.
First, this is amazing, and I love seeing over the years how we improve some of these. I think everything is on 2025. It would be really helpful if the minutes we've saved was also in the same format.
It was 9 million minutes this year.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I kind of
No,
glanced over that.
it's okay. I just wanted,
You're right.
in terms of comparison, it is an impressive number, and it's awesome that we've gotten there. And I know that we continue to find ways to avoid interruption. So I was also really impressed because we had these storms recently, and I was waiting. I'm in the forest. I was waiting for something to happen. So very grateful for all the work.
We all were. It was a sleepless night that very night.
Well, our teams did a great job.
Yeah, they
so
did.
Congratulations on them. Thank you.
Thank you. But yes, it's 9 minutes this last year, so it continues to increase as we put more. We put about 140 switches out there a year is our goal for the next 5 to 7 more years. So as we get further along, I hope to see that number keep climbing. I mean, obviously the weather is an impactful part of that. And so appreciate you asking that question, Claudia. Any other questions before I turn it over to the numbers guy? All right. Thank you all.
Okay, good afternoon, Commissioners. I am going to touch upon quite a few numbers, and I must admit, as I was looking over my stuff this morning, wondering how Celeste is and if she might be tuning in, because I know how much she enjoys numbers. But anyway, so yes, today I am going to give you a financial update. It's pretty much good news, and in a number of respects. Primarily, we're going to talk about our budget forecast for the year. We have 6 months of actual performance and 6 months of forecasted performance at this point in time. So we'll go through several slides that are all numbers and basically variances for expenditures, revenues, and bringing them both together. So to begin, we'll look at it just from a financial operating performance and our net income. So for the first 6 months of the fiscal year, July through December, we have $97.4 million in total net income or earnings. That's for all 5 divisions combined. That does represent an increase of $29 million over the same period last year. So that's a pretty significant increase. It is propelled largely by margin, higher sales margins for the most part through the various rate increases that the board previously adopted as part of the inflation response plan. So there was an increase for electric, gas, water, and wastewater. That's the primary driver for that increase. But if I noted about operating expenses, they are up as you would expect, but it's a very modest increase over last year. So bottom line is revenues grew much faster than expenses compared to the same time period last year. From a divisional perspective, I do want to point out that all 5 divisions are up over last year, which is good. Electric has the largest increase. It's up $16 million over last year, so about half of the total increase. So that's all I'm going to say about from an income statement perspective. Turn our attention now to budget performance. And so what we're forecasting is for sales margins is to be about $14 million over budget for the year. Electric is up about $6 million, gas up $6 million, wastewater's up about $500,000. Fiber, which is really good news, is up about $1.5 million over budget, and that ties back to what Gabe was talking about. We are exceeding our growth goals on that. So we're seeing it there. Water's a little bit below budget, about $500,000. So that's good news. With respect to expenses, looking at non-energy expenses, because when I talk sales margin, that takes into consideration energy cost. So looking at non-energy expenses, about $11 million, forecast to be $11 million under budget for the year. O&M's your primary factor there. It's projected to be $13 million under budget. Debt service and in lieu of tax payments combined are about $5 million under budget. Capital is projected to be $10 million over budget, in large part just due to some carryover from the previous fiscal year. So when the budget was set, there was dollars we expected to be spent in FY25. They weren't. They've transitioned and moved over to FY26, creating the variance for this year on that. So, but we'll look at all this here in more detail in just a few minutes, but from a divisional perspective right now, we are forecasting both the electric and wastewater divisions will need additional budget appropriations to cover their cash expenditures for the year. And we'll talk about the reasons why here in just a moment. Moving away from budget for a moment, and I'll have a full report on this in a few minutes, but we did sell $45 million in new bonds back in mid-January. The good news there is we came in, the rates that we received were lower than what was budgeted. That saves us about $3.5 million over the life of the bonds. So that's good news. And then the last thing I'll talk about on this particular slide is our retirement system. And we had very good returns, positive returns for 2025 for our pension assets and also our OPEB trust assets as well. Pension returned about 14% net of fees, OPEB about 16% net of fees. And so that's good news because when we do our actuarial valuations later this summer, the funded status should improve on that. And as a result, that means fewer cash contributions from KUB to the funds are needed, and that lowers our O&M expenses. So it has a financial benefit for our customers. The more you can get in investment gains, the less we have to put into the plan to maintain the appropriate funded status, and that helps our customers. So, any questions on that? Okay, next three slides, we get into looking at the variances for the budget. And again, this is a forecast based upon 6 months of actual, 6 months of projection. And we'll begin with budget expenditures. I'll point out on these slides, anytime you see a red number with a parenthetical around it, it has a negative cash impact. So we'll begin, and I'll go straight to the end to start. $7.5 million expenses are projected to be below budget in total. Okay. Yes.
I thought this slide was going to give me clarity, and I wasn't going to ask. Can you go back one slide just so I can understand what we're going to? So here it says non-energy expenses of 10.8 under budget.
Yes.
The other ones belong in the category of non-energy, or are they separate from? Because it doesn't add up, obviously, but.
Okay, so if we go here, and if you picked up that, 3.3 million, that's what's not showing on the first slide.
Okay.
Okay. That's the delta.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Between the two. Okay. So looking at the divisions, if we look at electric, our purchase power costs from TVA are up about 17.2 million over budget. That's the function of a TVA rate increase last October. That was not reflected in our budget. And then if you go down to capital, you see capital's about $4.7 million over budget. That's part of that carryover work from fiscal year 25, but it's also a reflection of us having to purchase more what we call stock materials, but really related to us adding more customers than we expected. There being more development, and we have to spend for electric service materials associated with that. So that's sort of a good reason to be over budget because we're having more growth than we expected, but that's part of that electric capital number as well. If you go down to the bottom, you can see we're about $11.9 million forecast to be over budget. And that's where the board would come in later in the spring. We'll have a revised forecast. Several more months will go by. But if that negative holds, we believe it's going to hold, that's where we'll need you to take action and approve a resolution adopting additional appropriations, because we must have that to cover those expenditures. Okay. Look at gas, the main variance. Unlike electric, we have gas commodity prices being lower than budget, which is good for our customers. That helps keep bills down a bit, but that's the main positive variance there. You go all the way to the bottom. Gas is projected to be about $18.7 million under budget for expenses. You'll see some of that offset on the revenues when those lower prices flow through to our customers. Water in total is about $1.7 million under budget. Wastewater is about $2 million over budget. You'll see wastewater capital being about $4 million over. That's carryover from last year as well on that. One other variance I wanted to point out here, if you look at O&M, that $13 million right there. 70% of that, or about $10 million of that, is a timing issue. We talked about our CIS project. It's just, those large type projects, there tends to be shifts in timing. So we have taken $10 million out of our forecast for O&M related to CIS, and that will be moved to fiscal year 27 on that. So if you look at the 13 million number, say, oh, that's great, that's wonderful, it's $13 million in savings. No, 10 million of that is timing, 3 million of that is savings, and most of it's labor-related savings. Okay, so that's O&M. I mean, that's budget.
Sorry, labor-related is because we haven't been able to fill positions?
Largely, yes, yes. Well under our staffing plan. Okay, so look at revenues. Begin with electric. Sales revenues are up $23 million. So that increase in what we saw with the TVA rate increase, those higher prices flow through to our customers. That bumps up revenues. Another part of that electric increase has to do with what happened last year. Through our rates, we recover what we pay TVA. And at the end of the year, we see what the balance of that is, because it's never perfect cost recovery. So we had under-collected about $5 to $6 million in power cost. That rolls into our rates for the current fiscal year, so we get those funds eventually from our customers. So that's part of that positive variance as well. And if you look at gas, it's down about $7 million. We expected that because gas commodity prices are down, so that's the offset of that. Water sales revenues down about $500,000 compared to budget. Residential is down. That's most of that variance on that, so we continue to monitor that. What we're seeing is per capita usage was a little bit less in actuality than what we had in our budget for that. And then, again, good news again on fiber. Sales revenues projected to be $1.1 million over budget. A couple of items on non-sales revenues. Electric is up $5 million. And part of that is increased contributions in aid of construction for development, again, signaling stronger customer growth. And then about $2 million of that is another sort of carryover item, a grant for rural broadband we expected to receive in FY25. It came across in FY26, creating the positive variance there. And then water, really the same thing, a combination of an ARPA grant that we thought we'd get last fiscal year. We got it in FY26, and then also higher contribution aid of construction for development. So in total, revenues about $26.4 million over budget. You put the two pieces together, and you really have a total positive cash impact for the current fiscal year of about $34 million. And you can see how that breaks down by division. Electric is $16.3 million to the good, gas about $12 million to the good, water about $4 million, fiber's up $2.3 million, wastewater's down about $1 million. We started the fiscal year with pretty strong cash positions. This is going to further solidify the strength of those cash positions. So even the negative number there on water is not really a significant concern. I guess when I think about, what is a concern is if that trend of lower per capita usage is going to continue over time and we're going to be under water revenue throughout our plan, then that's something we need to, obviously pay close attention to. So any questions on that? Remember, there's about, that looks great, but about 10 million of that is timing related going into FY27. Okay. So pivoting and looking at our metrics forecast. As the board knows, each year the Audit and Finance Committee will approve metrics, financial metrics, organizational metrics for the fiscal year. So those were approved in May of 25. And just to give you a forecast on what we are looking at here, beginning with our financial metrics, we have 3. We have O&M, cash expenditures, cash generated from operations, and debt service coverage. I won't go into a lot of detail. You do see a lot of green checks on the plan, on the forecast. So we are projected to essentially achieve almost all of our financial metrics. You see 1 X on the plan, and that's for fiber O&M. And usually I would not say that a negative variance on expenses is a good thing, but in this case, I think I can say that because what that's a reflection of is higher access fees paid to the electric division. This all links back to growth being greater than expected. So in this case, it's like, I don't mind seeing it once I know the reason for it. And it's a good reason to be over. But we think we can probably get that down. It's about $174,000. I think there's other factors that may turn that to a green check by the end of the fiscal year. Okay. And looking at our organizational metrics forecast. So we have essentially 5 prime categories. You see multiple boxes on there. Some of the organizational metrics have multiple components to them. I'm going to begin with electric reliability. It has 2 components. One is duration-based, the average outage, minutes of outage for the average electric customer, and then the frequency of outages. We're in really good shape on that, looking through actually even the month of January. We believe, I won't say easily achieve because I'll jinx us, but we are looking good with respect to our reliability metric for electric service. For Century 2 replacement, we have 5 key asset categories that make up that metric for replacement cycles. 4 of the 5 we are forecasted to achieve. 1 on the electric system, the replacement of overhead transmission lines. We've fallen a little bit behind. We have a permitting issue with the railroad on a certain project, and so it's delaying us a bit. And if we can get that resolved quickly, we might be able to achieve that metric, but right now we're projected to be about 1.5 miles short of our 8-mile goal for replacing overhead transmission lines. Okay. On the call center performance, that's the percentage of calls answered in 60 seconds. And our goal for you was 85%, and we're hovering right around that level at this point in time. January and February can be tougher months, just given winter weather, higher bills, etc. We look for that to hopefully improve in the spring. So we are forecasted to achieve that. And on fiber service, it has 2 components. One is customers. We've already talked about that several times. We're greatly exceeding our goal for fiber customer growth. The other is number of miles of construction on that. We are projected to fall short of our goal of, I think it was 700 miles, Jamie. 2 reasons. One is when we set that goal, we finished strong last year, so we finished above our target last year, so there's some carryover effect for that. Second is I think we sort of overestimated the amount of work that construction to be completed for this year. So we're still on track. Obviously, we're significantly exceeding our customer projections. I know Jamie doesn't want me to say significantly, but we are, and so everything is good on that. But we will not meet that goal for miles of construction. And then lastly, coming back to safety, we are projected to achieve that metric. You may recall that we did have a rather serious employee injury that occurred back in October. We have taken several months to fully investigate that incident, do an assessment with our internal safety team, our safety department. We've also used an external third party to review the incident and to review the equipment involved in the incident. And based upon all the information we've gathered, we've determined that that was an unpreventable incident on that. So hence the green check there. Any questions on the financial or organizational metrics? I think overall it reflects a good year we're having and forecasted to achieve for the rest of the fiscal year, hopefully. And there are a few X's on there, but for the most part, they're very explainable, and in some cases, it's okay. It's good to have one. Okay. So that concludes my comments. I'll transition on and talk about the results of our recent bond sale unless you all have any questions. Okay. So back in mid-January, we did sell $45 million of new bonds. That was $27 million for the electric system, $18 million for the water system. The board had previously authorized the issuance of those bonds back last May as part of the budget process. So the proceeds of the bonds are used to help fund the electric and water system capital budgets for the current fiscal year. The term of the bonds, these are 30-year bonds. They mature over a period of 30 years for both series of bonds. We do always have a competitive sale for our bonds. For each series, we had 7 bidders. And compared to historically, that's a little bit shorter, a smaller number than we have for electric. I've seen as many as 13 bids for an electric bond issue before. So I was a little surprised that we only had 7 bids for that. For water, usually that's in the range of what we historically get. Typically, we get more bids for energy-related bonds than we do for water and wastewater bonds, but in this case, we got 7 for both. As I mentioned, the good news was we had budgeted an interest rate of 4.5%. The low-cost bid for both series of bonds came in at 4.11%, so we saved 40 basis points. And that's always good. I mean, that helps. It's $3.5 million in debt service savings. I know that's over a long period of time, but still, it's better than the other was. As far as our bond ratings, we have our calls with Standard & Poor's and Moody's. We've become such a regular customer on some of this. Even Moody's didn't even want to have a call this year. We just answered some questions. So I guess that just shows we issue a lot of debt. And they know us very well. So looking at the 7 bids that we received for the electric bonds on the $27 million, the low-cost bid came from Robert W. Baird & Company. That is an international investment banking, wealth management firm, financial services firm. They have bid on our bonds ever since I've been involved in this. So they were the low-cost bid at 4.11%. One thing I always look at just to see what's the gap between, or the delta between the low and the high bid. In this case, it was about 30 basis points. And for having 7 bids, that's a rather large spread based upon my experience. But you can see J.P. Morgan really had a relatively high one compared to the number 6 one at KeyBank. And so looking at our profile of debt service on this. So the interest cost on the $27 million in new bonds is just under $21 million. So you have $48 million in debt service, principal plus interest spread over the 30-year period. And you can see on the chart on the right that basically, except for the first year when we're just making interest payments, it's a levelized payback structure of a little over $1.6 million per year. The bonds, even though they're 30-year bonds, they are callable with maturities beginning in 2033. So if interest rates are at a point, and once we reach that time, we can have a refinancing opportunity by calling in the debt. The 7 bids for water, again, it was a good day, I guess, for Robert W. Baird and Company. They were the low-cost bid on the water bonds with virtually the same rate as on electric at the 4.11%. And the spread between the low and the high here is about 15 basis points as opposed to 30 for the electric bonds. And looking at the debt issue profile, so how much interest as a result of the $18 million debt issue? It's about $14.2 million. So you've got $32.2 million in total debt service over the 30-year period. That's about $1,050,000 per year. Combination, as you know, combination of principal and interest will change each and every year, but you have that levelized payback structure, much like your home mortgage works. These bonds will fully mature in March of 2056, but just like electric, they are callable with maturities beginning in 2033. And then the professional fees for the new bonds. So this shows there's a lot of firms, several firms that help us in the sale of the bonds, including our financial advisor, Cumberland Securities, our bond counsel, which puts together all our closing documents and such for the sale of the bonds. That firm is Bassberry and Sims. And then, of course, we have our good friends at Moody's and Standard & Poor's, the rating agency fees that we have. If you go to the bottom line, roughly $280,000 in total cost associated with the sale of the bonds. That represents about 60 basis points compared to the par value, or the $45 million. That is a very competitive rate. And those fees are paid out of the proceeds of the bonds. That doesn't represent an O&M cost for KUB, anything such as that. And the last slide I had is just sort of shows you our whole debt profile for the fiscal year, where we began the year for each division, the additions in bonds, the additions in debt for the year, and you can see, of course, for electric, the $27 million, for water, the $18 million, and then just based upon our outstanding bond schedules, you can see what we paid off the course of the year in principal and where we're projected to end for the year. So you have two divisions go up about $10 million, electric and water. Then you have gas drop, and you have wastewater drop because we had no debt activity for those systems. We have not issued new debt in gas since 2019, and we haven't issued new debt in wastewater since 2021. So in total, if you look at it from a consolidated perspective, we end up basically where we started, and that you brought on $45 million in new debt. You paid off about $47 million. So you're still just right under $1.2 billion when we will end this fiscal year. Any questions on the bond sales? Okay, one last thing, and Erin reminded me here because sometimes I forget to say this, but there is a very large notebook by Chair Gibson, and we are required by law to make that available to the board at this meeting. It is the final official statement for the sale of the bonds. So it's anything you want to see in there related to the bonds. There's like 500 and something pages. You're welcome to look at it, take it with you. If you want your own personal copy, we'll be happy to provide you one. Also, in the very back of the book, there are two, I guess, certifications forms that we have to submit to the state called Report on Debt Obligations, which detail all of the issuance costs of the bonds. They go into specific detail, and we're required to make that available to the public as well. So, and I know Commissioner Caballero, you're going on your trip. You might want to take that with you. So you have plenty to read on this when you have some downtime. But that's all I have. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mark. I tickled there. Commissioners, our community advisory panel is still actively meeting and giving us good feedback on some things we're talking with them about. Appreciate their service. They've done a great job over the last 5 years. I've asked Aaron Gill, our Vice President of Communications and External Relations, to give you an update on the community advisory panel, what we've talked about, what's coming up, and who the members are of that committee. So thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Gabe. And thanks to the board members who have participated and engaged with our community advisory panel over the years. They really have proven to be a thoughtful group of community leaders who love to engage with us on a variety of topics. So I appreciate those of you who have participated in some of those, and an open invitation, I think, for the board members who would like to join us in 2026. They do have very good discussions. So for the past several years, we have endeavored to focus our discussion topics with the CAP around topics that timely input could be useful. Whether to the customers to understand what's going on in the KUB landscape, but especially for our team as we are shaping different programs and decisions. And so with that lens, these are the topics that we covered in 2025. We started in February with a discussion of the upcoming CIS replacement project. You obviously heard that was one of our major organizational priorities for this year. And so we facilitated a discussion about that system and what it does today, and asked for their feedback about the tools, functions, user interfaces that they found most useful with our current system, as well as those types of tools that they're using with other providers that they might be dealing with who have really good models. We wanted to make sure we had a good, thoughtful discussion from them around how we can make that system optimized for our customers. We moved in April to a discussion around our strategy for managing the electric grid. And that included updates similar to what you have heard about grid modernization initiatives that are designed to improve reliability and improve the resilience of the system. It included that FLISR update, Commissioner Caballero, that you asked about earlier, around customer minutes of interruption and how those investments are paying dividends in very tangible ways to our customers. This was an interesting one because we also sought their feedback on several peak load management and demand management strategies that we were contemplating. Among those included the battery storage system, which we are, deploying this year as part of our capital budget, as well as the TVA Smart Thermostat program, which recently launched in partnership with TVA. So we were able to get updates in a very timely fashion that helped us inform how we evaluated those programs. We talked a little bit about growth earlier. Our CAP certainly is feeling that and experiencing that. So in June, we spent some time helping them understand how we are responding to and planning for the significant growth in our region. So we led a discussion around how we support our economic development activities, work with the chamber in our community, as well as some of the complexities, again, much that you've heard about around the challenges of working in increasingly tight spaces, accommodating residential, commercial growth, higher densities, working in a variety of settings to try to accommodate what our customers need. And that discussion also included a pretty good dialogue around the Small Business Enterprise Program and how we work with small and local businesses. October, we welcome them to Kauai. You can see the tour down there, one of our favorites. If you've been on that tour, you know how much we love showing it off. So they participated not only in the tour here, which they found very insightful, but they learned a little bit about the history of the consent decree and how that wastewater system is such a core feature of how we serve the community. And they also spent some time really understanding the fats, oils, and grease program and the community partnerships that we rely on to maintain that system. And then we ended with a discussion in December on fiber. They had engaged with us in 2021 when we were first starting to roll out that program and think through phases think through how we would engage with customers through that new service. And so we brought back a pretty comprehensive update about how that is going. And what was nice about that was that several of them had been part of that discussion on the front end and had been champions for it in the community. And no surprise to any of you, I don't think, but they continue to be champions. And we heard, several of the early adopters telling their peers about these over and above customer service relationships that they had through fiber. And we were also able to follow up on several specific items related to Connect Ed, related to workforce, related to the products and the pricing that were specific points of input that the CAP had in that early discussion in 2021. And that was really important feedback that continues to inform our work. So as we look ahead to 2026, we did have several members roll off, and we have several new members joining us. But we strive to find members to serve on the community advisory panel that represent a fairly diverse cross-section of our customers. So we want those who have a perspective on the needs of low-income customers in particular, especially with environmental perspectives. That was part of the original framework for the community advisory panel. But we've also remained true to the desire to make sure we have businesses represented, that we have neighborhoods represented, just kind of the everyday, folks that we are serving in a variety of ways. You'll see our new members coming on. We're very excited to have them join us. If you have not met any of these individuals, Nancy Friedrich is a retired teacher and engaged with Volunteer Ministry Center. She's part of her neighborhood group. We have Melissa Hinton, who's the executive director of Trees Knoxville, who's coming on board as kind of our environmental participant alongside our returning member, Dr. John Nolt with Sierra Club. And then we have Pastor Vincent Jones, who is the pastor of Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, and will be an excellent representative for some of that community and neighborhood perspective. We are also working with Mayor Bailey in Union County. He has historically appointed a CAP member to represent his community in kind of that more rural area of our service territory, and we are pending confirmation from a person who's been invited to serve in that role. So we're excited to have that new crop of folks join us. Our 2026 panel meetings, we do have the date set. So again, as you look at your calendars, I hope that you might consider joining us for one of these. We will meet quarterly. Traditionally, we meet at the Hoskins Operations Center. We are going to incorporate, we think, some offsite opportunities to see other facilities, much like we did with Kauai. So we expect to be out at MBW at some point this year. But we keep these meetings to a nice hour and a half, and they are open to the public, and they are also recorded. So we continue to post all of those information and packets from the meetings online, where anyone can access them. And again, appreciate the engagement of this board and the support for this community advisory panel, and appreciate to the members that you saw on this slide for their continued engagement and very thoughtful discussion and dialogue along the way.
Is there a community forum?
Yes, there is a public listening session part of the meeting. We don't historically get many participants in that, but that is part of the official agenda, and we would welcome members of the public to comment if they desired. Any other questions? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Gabe. Certainly off to a great start halfway through the year, so we appreciate all the hard work that that entails, and nice job on the bonds and the ratings, Mark. And I really think the Community Advisory Panel has been a great addition, and it's a way to make sure the community feels part of what KUB does. So you all do a really nice job with that. All right. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the board today? All right. Following adjournment of this meeting, the board will have a lunch session that is open for the public to observe. This meeting is adjourned.
Chair Gibson, before we adjourn, can we go back to the minutes real quick?
Yes.
There was a motion and a second. I want to make sure we recorded the vote properly on that. For the January approval of the January minutes, all in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you for keeping us in order. Appreciate that. Now we're adjourned.